exploits and breaches, locks and hacks. Rachel and Will got your back. Cyber threats and password fails, they'll break it down with real details. Step into the convo, pull up a chair. Ideas are brewing, wisdom in the air. From vendors to zero trust, they're keeping it real and keeping it just. One sips coffee, the other abstains, but both drop knowledge straight to your brain. Talking tech with a human touch, add some laughs, so we've got that much. Grab a cup and circle up our tea talk that won't corrupt. Firewalls up, stay alert, let's keep the hackers eating dirt. Grab a cup and circle up.
Isn't that fun?
I love that.
Fun. It's so corny, you guys. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Coffee Table Talks. Today, we're going to be chitty-chatting with Tyler Croak, cybersecurity researcher with Hydden, who is actually a partner over here with us at Secure Nation. If you're new here, my name is Rachel Arnold. I'm the human API with Secure Nation. And this is Will McCullen, the program manager at the IT Center for Excellence at Pima Community College in Tucson, Arizona.
Well done. Well done.
I think this is the first time that John Davis has joined right whenever we were doing the countdown. And I'm sure I mentioned it to him before. That's my boss. I'm sure I've mentioned that I made a theme song using AI to him before. And he was really good. He was focused on something else. So just gave that right by him. Look, I did a thing. It's awesome. So first thing I want to talk about, as you guys notice, normally up in the upper, what is that? Is that left? That's the left. Upper left corner. There's a QR code that leads you to the Secure Nation LinkedIn page. Well, today it's different. It leads you to the B-Sides New Orleans page because B-Sides New Orleans is happening next Tuesday. And you should go and check it out. Grab your tickets. They're selling out really fast. I think there's only like 30 left. Maybe there's 30 left. I have no idea. Anyway, it's only $45, $25 for students. You get to select your t-shirt size because they like to do that for you. That way they make sure that they have a t-shirt in your size and swag is accommodating. And John says, yes, it is. That music is a trip. I love it. Hey, good morning, Jesse. Good morning, Rob. Good morning, Arizona Cyber Warfare. I know that's you, Brett. That must be Brett. That jazz. You crack me up. Oy vey. Okay, so anyway, B-Sides New Orleans, that's happening next week. We will be there. We're going to do a special session of the Coffee Table Talks live from B-Sides. If you've been following us for a while, we did it last year with the CISO for GE Veranova. He was wonderful and fantastic. This year, we're going to have Julie Nelson from OnDefend. I met her at the cyber warfare range in Arizona. By the way, Will, this is partially your fault, right? Because why else do I go to Arizona other than to hang out with you? But Julie was there and we made a connection and she is just delightful. So she's flying down from Colorado on Tuesday to come do a Coffee Table Talk session live and in person. Which
awesome.
Is amazing.
Unfortunately, I'll be in Tucson.
You will be, you will be in Tucson. Did we talk? Are you able to join that in the middle of the day on a Tuesday?
Oh, yeah. I can work things out.
Delightful. Okay, good. That's awesome. Okay, let's get to Tyler, though. So, Tyler, you are not even in the country at the moment.
Nope.
You're in
the real background.
Yeah, that's the real background. And that's the Dominican Republic, which I had to Google because I am great at lots of things. Geography is not one of them at all.
Yeah, we're down here for 9 days, and it's me, my wife, and my son, and it's been an adventure. He's 20 months old, so getting to go in the ocean for the first time is really cool. So getting to see that and be there with him for that is awesome. That's been a really great trip. Cool. Very sunny, but not super hot. So I thought it'd be very hot, but it hasn't been.
That's awesome. So are you guys just vacation And then you
Pretty
were
much, yeah. Vacationing. We had a friend join us for the first half of the trip. Haven't done any excursions, but just mostly eating lots of food and relaxing. And we do have like a swim up pool right outside of our room, so that's been
what?
really cool. And he has, yeah,
Oh,
our son has like a vest on and everything when he's going out there. So I'm definitely dunking him in the water a few times just to get him used to it.
Nice. Nice. Make sure you
Yeah,
take lots of pictures. That way, whenever he's a really angry teenager and he's like, "You guys never take me anywhere," you'd be like,
right.
"Yes, we do."
Yeah. Yeah, it's my wife's mantra to have him travel at a very very young age, and I to get him used to it because we both love to
Aw,
travel. So
that's fantastic. I also like to travel. This is going to be my kiddos' first go with mom on a trip. So I don't live far from New Orleans, but it is an hour and a half drive, and I do stay. I'm going to stay both nights, like the night before and the night of the conference in the
yep.
hotel. And normally, if we take our kids somewhere, it's to go see family. We're renting like a whole house situation. This is going to be his first like hotel conference experience, and he's stoked. He got into like Python coding
Oh, that's
the
awesome.
first like year or two. He's a very bright kid. He's real bad at um, social socializing with kids his own age.
Gotcha.
So he's picked up hobbies
That's
that
awesome.
yeah, which me and his dad are there to support whatever their hobbies are. It just happens to be that one is something I kind of understand.
Have
I'm
a
like,
passion for. Yeah,
"Aw." You are
that's
mommy's
really
kid.
cool. That'll be
Uh,
great. That'll be great.
yeah. He's stoked. He's been asking me all week, what happens if a hacker tries to hack him? And I'm like, "So,"
Asking the big questions. I like it.
right? I was like, "So the hackers you're gonna meet are gonna be friend-shaped hackers."
Put it in his language. I think that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
are you sure about that?
I'm real sure if somebody tries to attack my son digitally, I'm coming for your eyeballs. How about that?
Parental instincts kick in for sure.
They do. It's a
Yep.
mama bear moment. So, anyway, that's
That's
cool.
awesome.
I love that you're exposing your kiddo to that. I think that's great that
Yeah,
that's,
yeah. It's it's
part of
it's
you.
it's really nice. Between the weather, good company, good food. It's just all around a great time and
Nice.
nice break. Nice break
I
overall.
am also am super humbled that you're joining our coffee table while you're on vacation.
I brought my laptop and my headset, and I was like, I think I'll find the place with the best reception and do it there. But I didn't want to change anything. I wanted to be here, so
Aw,
glad to be here today.
thank
Well,
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So do you do a lot of traveling for Hidden, like for worky
I will
things?
be in the future for sure. Not quite yet, but definitely you will see me as one of the faces of Hidden. Definitely in the coming months and years. So pretty exciting company, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about later.
Yeah,
Actually,
well, so,
I was gonna ask right now. I was like, so
Oh
what
yeah. So I'm the director of identity security research here, and the company is really focused on solving a identity visibility problem. So you can call it identity visibility or observability, but we're really focused on nailing that first because what we've observed, our company has lots of experts in privileged access management. A lot of us come from the privileged access management space. So one of the big challenges that we've seen in the space is um, identity is really a data problem at the end of the day. Meaning, we've found that in order for us to really address a lot of identity threats and risks that are out there, you need to first have a comprehensive visibility into your identity ecosystem. And what we've observed in the industry is that a lot of that is really exists in a silo. So um, the depth of integrations that's out there for collecting identity data from a variety of sources is often kind of limited. So our scope is really to collect identity data event information from any application or system anywhere it resides. So you need to first have that full comprehensive visibility before you can take action or understand the risks that exist within your environment.
so I mean, to break it down a little bit, right? Because identity is really key in the whole thing. It that basic part of are you who you say you are, right?
Yep.
Comes into play. And now that has become so much more than just logging onto your local server. Now heading through cloud, heading through federation, heading through all these elements that you can log into a different resource controlled by somebody else, get your token, and it's now their job to say you are who you are. And now you're trying to figure all that out and keep track of that.
Yeah.
That's how wide of a surface does that become? That's got to be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we're we're kind of narrowing down this category, or helping create this subcategory of identity attack surface management. So you've probably heard of the broader category of attack surface management, and there's the Gartner term CASM, which is like cyber asset attack surface management, and then there's things like internal and external attack surface management. So you have all of these like categories and subcategories now of attack surface management. But if you think about what you mentioned, which is really attestation, attestation is one component of it. Um, Having the full wide range visibility of whether a human is using an account or whether a machine is using an account, there's just tons of different identity types nowadays. So attestation looks different depending on the identity type, and that's just one piece of it. Is what I would say.
Yeah, a lot of times I think uh, when it's interesting. So I work with students, right? I'm working at a college and trying to get across the whole concept of identity, how large that has grown, and also trying to get down to some of the simplistics of keeping all this safe, right? Because when it comes down to brass tacks, it's where do you get your login? How do you know who you are? And then make sure that in transition as well, that stays solid.
Hmm.
So in your product and what you do, how do you do that? How do you work in between everything from logging into Azure to logging into a local account to logging into wherever, and then all the different elements of two factor that come into play, because there's multiple companies doing that too.
Yeah, so I like to think of us really as a complementary value add to these existing identity security categories. So you've got IGA products, you've got privilege access management products, and we're sort of the glue that's sitting between these. Also, another category would be like remote access products. So you've got your maybe your ZTNA product, or how you provision access to a remote resource without using a VPN. So we're kind of acting as the glue between these categories, and I can give you a good example. You mentioned like how a employee may access a specific server or resource. um, in many cases they're doing that with a privileged account, so they're logging into a privileged access management solution, they're retrieving a set of separate uh, administrative credentials, and then they're remotely logging onto that system or host that they're trying to access to perform some sort of privilege function. One of the things that we're focusing on is making sure that all of the identities across all of those systems are discovered, and not just privileged identities, and allowing folks to store those credentials or create credentials in an existing privileged access management product that they already have. So rather than just storing credentials like within our vault, if you've got CyberArk Vault or a BeyondTrust Vault or a Delinea Vault, we're widening the scope of what's discoverable, and then giving you the ability to store those credentials. A lot of organizations, I would say, focus on only storing what's known, and then later focusing on, let's discover what's unknown within our environment. So we rely on those existing identity provider categories. We're adding on those layered controls for two-factor authentication on top of that credential, or session management on top of that credential. But we're really focused on widening the scope of what's discovered, and then what credentials are stored for those discovered accounts. Just to give you perspective.
That's a good perspective. I like it. I followed. Everybody else? Anybody? Don't forget, if you got questions, we're not here to tell you you've got bad questions. You can have good ones too. It's fine. So little Tyler, 5 years old, was like, this is what I want to do when I grow up. Right?
Well, let's see. When I was young, I wanted to be a house builder, and so I take that as the form of an
Oh,
architect. So, I wanted to be an architect when I was young and build houses. And then somewhere along the line, like of being a teenager, my dad and I would go around and we would do like spring cleanup shopping.
okay.
So in Pennsylvania, which is where I grew up, every summer you'd have people throw out equipment, everything. It just once a year you'd have this big like throw out festival, and the trash people would come and they would pick up all the large items. My dad and I, we would actually go around and pick up like spare computer parts, and then we would
Oh,
just
got you.
put
You were dumpster
we would
diving
just
for
tag.
tech. There we go.
Yeah, yeah, we would just put the
Got you.
parts together, and
Yeah, no, that's cool. We used to do that. You're fine.
yeah, and
No,
so
I
that
get it.
that's where my interest came, and
Yeah,
it was kind of like a different type of house building. Like that's the way
yeah.
that I kind of transitioned it. Right, it was like I had always thought, oh, okay, I'm actually going to physically go build houses, and then it transitioned to like a love for computers and putting computers together. So like getting into the hardware at a really young age is like what inspired me, and then of course you have like uh, early movies like Hackers and everything
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that inspired me. And there was there was a period of my life that I was not. I'll say I was more gray hat than anything. But there, back in the IRC
Really?
days, there was a period of my life where I was exploring ethical and unethical means, and that's where
Well,
my love for cybersecurity really was born.
well,
Was
it's good to
that.
understand both perspectives, though, isn't it? Doesn't that make you a more well-rounded cybersecurity professional,
I
knowing
think
both
you have
sides of
to.
it? Yeah, a
Yeah,
little,
you have to know how the adversaries think. And so
right? I mean,
ironically,
do
yeah,
do only good, but check
yeah,
it
I mean,
check it out.
I only had like, one cease and desist letter, so I think that's pretty good.
That's not bad. That is pretty good. That's, sorry, I was just nodding at my FBI agent off the screen. Just kidding.
But no, it was that's kind of where my love came from. And then of course I went to school for computer science at Penn State, and did a bunch of certifications before I went to college. So after high school, I did like 10 different certs, and then my parents were like, "Okay, we'll help pay for your certification courses if you promise to do a 4-year college afterwards," which is what I did. And any Penn State program turns into 4.5 years, in my opinion, even if you do summer summer courses. So great school, just lots of coursework. And then I did Japanese as my language selection requirement on top of that. So
Tyler, I don't
yeah,
think
just
I'm cool enough to be sitting here.
no, not at
I can't
all.
even
That
English
you're
well. You're doing Japanese. I can't even English. Like
I uh I got to
that's
propose
a
to my
hard
wife in
language.
Japan. It was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on, I'm
So,
processing.
so what led you into the identity notch?
Yeah. So back when I was working at I was working at Mandiant. So originally I started at a Harley Davidson motorcycle company when I was in college. So I was a help desk person. So I started out in service desk. And I think service desk, by the way, is like an awesome place to start for anyone. The customer service type skills that you develop, those interpersonal soft skills, become so important in cybersecurity later on. So I did about 4.5 years of that while I was in college. And then after I graduated, I had a friend that I went to high school with that went down and started working at Mandiant. And Mandiant was really small at the time. There were only like 50 some employees. I didn't get down there until I think 130 or so. Um, so originally, my friend wanted me to do be a sysadmin there. By the time I finished my degree, there was only a help desk role available. So I went down there and moved down to Alexandria, Virginia, about 2 hours away from where I lived, and started as a help desk person and just worked up the ranks of systems administration. And I would say within a year, I was pretty much handed my first like identity security project, which was um, I was on the internal IT team, right? So I was a defender, and effectively I was handed a project that was like all right, we need to start storing our valuable credentials inside some sort of vault. And so we were like an early Thycotic customer. And what was crazy about my Thycotic journey was um, all of the transitions that happened within Mandiant. So Mandiant got acquired by FireEye.
Right.
FireEye acquired another company called Eyesight Partners.
Yep.
All of those companies had Thycotic.
Yeah.
So I was in charge of merging all of those into one new instance. So I took all of the different instances, merged it into one new corporate instance, and that was really my like foray into identity security. And of course, um, what was really cool about that experience and working on those that project was um, the way that I created like processes for people to be onboarded really helped our adoption rate. So we only had like two or three small teams using it. It was mostly IT and infosec, but after about 8 years, I got around 18 different departments using the tool. And we had like our own maturity model that I created to onboard those teams. So, stage one was vault everything you know. Stage two was configure discovery and do password rotations. So I would help like guide those teams through that process. And we were Thycotic customers the entire time up until I left. I left FireEye. So that was really my foray into it. And then, of course, I was involved with, you know, configuring RSA tokens, configuring uh, different identity security products for MFA, things like that as well. So just
It's so
starting
often
getting a
the
passion.
opportunity to follow a niche, like a path, a directed, very focused, targeted path in cybersecurity is often because they went, we need this, and nobody else. Like, it feels like everybody else in the group took a giant step back, and you were just the only one left standing forward.
It
You know
was
what I
it,
mean?
it
You're
was
like,
wild. It
oh,
was
I guess
wild.
it's me.
Yeah. Like what ended up happening, and I want to like address some of these comments because it's really funny. But what ended up happening was like Thycotic saw my adoption process and everything, and they started like inviting me out to talks, like as like a customer success story. So like I got to go speak at RSA with Joe Carson one time, which was really cool. I got to do a couple of like webinars with them. So like I just had fun, and that was my actual foray into public speaking as well. So hold on, I have to address these two comments because it's just super funny. Yes, tech support does change you, absolutely, um, in many different ways. And then yes, I tried to actually propose to my wife in Japanese, but I only got to the point where I said like part of her first name before she started crying. So I never got to actually ask her the full the full sentence. So
Oh. That would have, yeah, that's how I react in those moments too. Like, I could feel it coming, and I'm like, no, it's just too much. Yeah, I started crying immediately whenever Josh started to propose. It was not in Japanese, but it was.
my wife says she blacked out. So like we were in
Wow.
the we were in the Tokyo Tower like at closing time, and it was like cherry blossom festival and stuff, and yeah, she basically just says she kind of blacked out, and I had to like sit her down. So
My gosh, what a romantic cybersecurity researcher,
I
identity
I
access
appreciate.
management guru. Is there anything Tyler can't do? I don't think so. I think
Oh,
he's
there's
got
plenty of stuff I'm still learning and growing. I'll put it that way. I try
it.
to try to remain humble. I don't know everything. I definitely don't claim to.
We need to get you on one of our cyber dives with our students and then ask you, okay, how would you hack it?
I love teaching. Honestly, I'm really passionate about like mentoring and teaching others. Like even to this day, people that I've worked with previously, they're still like mentees of mine, and I spend time with them. And I can say that I can say that's still the case. Like to this day, for every prior company that I've worked at, I still have people that I mentor. And I think mentorship in our field is so important.
I'm not laughing at your mentorship. Nick Kelly distracted
Joe
me. I'm
Shimmies.
sorry. I was like, what? I'm sorry. That was a terrible time
Josh
for me to.
Shimmies. I like it.
That was
It's
such a
fine.
face grin. Wow. Oh
Yeah,
man.
very cool. And we would appreciate that quite a bit. So we regularly have these sort of things called cyber dives where students will and whomever from the public can come and give either quick talks or longer talks, and then we hang out and do all sorts of stuff. So some of the things that the students come up with the different hacks and showing different hacks and things of that sort, to whatever.
Oh,
And
that
we've
all
got,
really interests someone like me, a researcher, right? I love students that are curious. Curiosity is the best in our field.
oh,
And
dude,
his students are
afterwards, hang on,
super,
we'll show you
yeah.
slides.
I'm like, hold on a second. And his students are super curious. Like
That's awesome.
every time I go there, like they've always got some kind of fantastic, mind-blowing project going on. And like as somebody that exists in the space where tech stacks are discussed on a daily basis about product functionality failing or being awesome or whatever, like I'll walk by some of these students like workstations and I'm like, what is this? And they'll explain it to me and I'm like, that's like the thing that I hear 20,000 people complain about on a regular basis. I'm like, oh my gosh, has anybody talked to you about how to patent stuff? Like, oh,
We can talk about patents too. I love the patenting process. I've learned a lot about that the last few years. And if you find a kid that's got something novel that wants to go down a patent route, boy, is that fun. I found that to be very fun.
I hadn't even thought about that until a couple of years ago. One of my clients over at Zillow announced that and he was patenting it not for any other purpose other than just to protect the research, right?
Yep.
And he announced that he patented it. And in my experience, if you patent something, you were trying to make sure that it was proprietary to you and then you could go and make money off of it. So I was like, what does this mean? Are you going to quit Zillow? And, and he was like, no, and like I got an education in that moment about how important sometimes it is to patent, and it's not just for, money making sake, but just to protect this piece, right?
Yep.
From other people doing bad things with it. And I think that's just I'm appreciative always to my friend Ben to educating me about that. But anyway, that's how I learn all kinds of stuff. So
that process
yeah.
is really, really cool.
Dude,
I got
dude,
it. Go ahead.
you have an open invitation. Come down to Tucson anytime and we can hang out with the students. You'll love it. I mean,
That's awesome.
they're doing everything from Tempest attacks to they've picked up our electric company now has redone all the gas meters and electric meters around to make sure that they are now encrypted because they were picking up all those. We've got drones going in now, Davis Monthan, and all this kind of fun stuff that the students are having a great time with.
That's really cool.
There's not much to do in Arizona except for look at the big old piles of dirt and sand. So
I haven't been there still, to be honest. I've only passed through, so I haven't spent much time there. That sounds awesome, though. I got to teach 40 students on my second month here at Hydden over at the UBC campus. So UBC was really cool, training them, setting up a lab, and helping them understand some identity hygiene problems. That was really fun. So I love teaching students. It's definitely a passion for me.
Awesome. Very cool. So in your line of work now, you're in this position where you're seeing a whole lot happening with identity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're trying to monitor all this stuff and then insert being able to have that visibility, because there's been things going on, GM. Now, even with much greater clarity, you even have to be very, very careful about everything in between, right? And where things inject and where things are communicating with each other. When you put all this together, what from your observations, what would you like to get across to the world on what needs to happen? Maybe different perspectives, maybe areas that really need to be improved and the industry is just not working that way. You've got to have some views along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, let me like put on my like strategist hat a little bit and talk about some of these themes. Um, at the end of the day, we're seeing identity attacks continue to rise. Like if you look at any of the annual threat reports that are coming out, CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, um, Mandiant's report, um, even though some of the reports will still say like exploited vulnerabilities is the number one initial access vector, they all basically say that identity attacks are on the rise. And many of the reports have actually indicated now that identity attacks are the number one initial access vector. So the first thing that I'm going to say is we got to get hygiene right. Like at the end of the day, we have to get basic hygiene correct. And I'm talking about like accounts that still need MFA. Now, like, fortunately, we've got several of the major cloud security providers that are forcing MFA now upon new accounts, Microsoft or Azure being one of them. That requirement is now in place for accounts. I don't think it's accounts of all types yet, but primary accounts it is. So getting visibility into all of the identities across an entire ecosystem and just understanding some basic hygiene things like if this is a machine account, is it still having its password or its token rotated on a specific basis? That's something that I think we still need to put like heavy emphasis on. Another area that I would say is important is I do a lot of research in adversary activity. So, what are adversaries doing on a day-to-day basis to break into environments? And one of the things that I'll say that I observe is that we are seeing EDR, endpoint detection response technology, hit a certain level of maturity. And because that certain level of maturity has been reached, threat actors are now focusing more on attacking systems that are edge and network devices to get into organizations where there is not really EDR controls. And a lot of the times that looks like a threat actor actually exploiting a VPN device or some sort of firewall, and they'll use a software vulnerability to exploit the device, but then they're immediately compromising identities from that device. And then they just use that as a way to laterally move. So this is why I say observability and visibility is so important first, because a lot of the identity attacks that are occurring, there's not comprehensive coverage of those types of devices, or we're not gathering those logs or prioritizing those logs in sort of our incident response processes. So those are the two areas that I spend a lot of time like looking at. And I would say that fundamentally we still have major hygiene problems across organizations. In many cases, they may be systems or applications that you just don't have coverage for, or you don't
Mhm.
understand what the best practice configuration is for that device when it comes to its identity security controls. That was a little long-winded, but hopefully that answers
No,
your
I
question.
I like it, and
Awesome.
you even did like you tingled all the good parts of my ADHD brain. You even did like a summary at the end and like wrapped it back around. I loved it. I'm taking notes over here. Okay, Nick has got a question. How do you handle the balance between no MFA and MFA fatigue from multiple authenticators?
Geez, that's a good question.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I would say that we still have problems to solve when it comes to like MFA fatigue attacks in particular. Um, Maybe there's some space for inventing in that area, I would say still. So when I would say, I personally am of the belief that no MFA is not an option anymore.
Right.
Like you have to have MFA. I also believe that continuous authentication specifically is a solution here. So when I think about like session duration, when it comes to accessing privilege access management accounts, so let's just say like a dash admin account. Um, Typically you have a fixed period of length that you have access to that particular that account's credentials. It's like 8 hours or something like that, but it's not continuously measured. I think we need better mechanisms to do continuous authentication measurements, um, rather than just continuing to push MFA requests at people. So, if we had a way to attest better, which is an area that we talked about earlier already, um, then we wouldn't necessarily need to continue to like prompt MFA bomb people, for access requests. So that's how I feel about it. Is no MFA is not an option, but I think we are still working on finding convenient, balanced with security ways of handling authentication.
So, how about because your background and what you're dealing with, is there anything along the lines in everything we've been talking around tends to be stuck in how everything is being done, right? Because it's huge. Uh, a lot of these basic elements have not changed much in a long time in the base protocols and how things are going, because it's such a you can't bootleg turn a semi at 60 miles per hour, right? Is there any major elements of the conceptual parts of how authentication takes place that you'd like to see change?
I
I mean, if you could start from scratch, right? And
yeah,
that's the one question that
I,
big businesses and things can never seem to
yeah.
ask, because there's so much in play. If you were to redo this from scratch, would you take a
I love
different
this
approach?
stuff. I love it because you force me to put my inventor hat on, which makes me want to like talk about novel ideas. To be honest, the best security, in my opinion, is when it's invisible to a user. So
Yeah,
if I
I
was to
like that.
create something new, it would be a invisible way to perform authentication. I don't like to toot my own horn or anything, but I created a patent in this space a couple of years ago, and it's a continuous authentication patent specifically. So authentication is something that I'm really passionate about. So if I was to recreate it completely from scratch, I would make it invisible to the user, but still require multiple methods of authentication, in order to access a resource. There are ways to do that. There are companies out there that are focused on that as well. But I think that the method we have today, which is my phone, of getting on here and approving my MFA request or whatnot, it's relatively convenient. It has problems, and he mentioned, like Nick mentioned, how do you deal with the fatigue from multiple authenticators? I hate it. I need a universal standard that is just one app that pulls everything in together if I'm going to keep that kind of technology, rather than having different applications handle it. But my solution would be go back to the drawing board on making a uh, invisible solution, something that is invisible and something that also caters to all kinds of age demographics. Because another problem to me is, security is handled differently by people of different ages.
Yep.
Like you're asking someone to configure, a token or through an app on a phone for somebody that's, in their 60s. It's a different set of challenges. So that's
I
why
think
I
you just
say
hurt a lot of people's feelings by saying 60s. I always, I
my dad's in his 60s and I think he's young. So
I always
Well,
my dad's in his 80s, so I always am thinking about my dad in his 80s, and it's not because he doesn't understand it. My dad is one of those guys that my whole life, if there's a new technology out there, like do you guys remember whenever at-home bread makers became popular? Anybody? We
of
had
course.
one because that's like if it was new and shiny, my dad was owning it and figuring out how it worked. Like that
oh,
was
that was
that was
good
his
too.
thing. Our house smelled so good on those days. But
You're
but
making me
like
hungry, but I already ate enough today.
but like
But
whenever now, and he's very adept and very good utilizing his smartphone, but he's 80.
well,
And his
yeah, but
phone
also,
shakes and like it's hard for him to key in a password or to even follow the prompts to his password manager That's hard for him to do. So I'm
Yep.
so grateful that so many things we can turn on, a biometric option for him to do that, because without that, he would just get so frustrated he would break probably a new smartphone every 2 days from throwing it across the being so mad. But like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, also, folks, I'm from a community college, right? We're leaving out a whole massive area, which is socioeconomic. We're making the assumption that everybody has a phone.
That's
Right.
right.
Not everybody has a phone.
What do you
Yep.
do? And I love this approach because we got to think differently. One of the things I talk with students all over the place, I like to blame the industry, is that when you look at cybersecurity, if things, because it's grown and things get put on top of other things and things get tried to make other things, if the elements of security are confusing enough to everybody, that's our fault as an industry.
Yep.
If things are too confusing for people to easily digest, understand, and go through, then we're the problem. We've created a situation where it doesn't work security wise simply because it's too complex. I mean, like, how many folks know to check a cert in their browser? A what?
Right.
You know,
There's that example. There's the example of verifying, verifying the URL, even if it has a valid cert. There's the same issue with looking through email headers.
Yeah.
Um, and I can give more examples, right, Will, on the challenges that we face in this space with authentication. We've heard about the switch to passwordless, the continued move towards passwordless.
Yeah.
Well, um, I don't know about you guys, but like sometimes when I'm using passwordless, it works great, and then other times it completely fails on me, and it doesn't matter like how many times I like reconfigure it or whatnot. And so like that's not invisible security to me. So like that to me is almost a step backwards. Now maybe that helps with organizations that are password management focused, that have blue ocean strategies of passwords never going away. But it's not seamless and easy for me to use, and it's not universally adopted yet or anything like that too. When it works great. When it doesn't work, I give up on it, and I have to fall into a fallback MFA method, which is not secure. So we need more options. We probably need better universal standards, those sort of things out there, and I'd like to explore.
yeah, I like Nick's comment there of, the wake up call when COVID hit. Schools
Oh,
assumed all students could work from home equally.
Yep.
That's a erroneous assumption.
Yeah, you remember the growth we had with the stocks for any company that was doing remote software, or anything like that, sort of remote work, VDI solution software, anything like that grew during that period of time. And
Oh yeah.
so did
Everybody-
the shift in tactics for attackers in this
Yep.
remote first world, right?
Yep.
We saw that increase in social engineering attacks at the same time.
Do you think we're getting to a point where um, the standard way of doing things and stuff is? Do you see a bubble coming up that will force a different approach to authentication than just building upon what is constantly there? Right? It could be because this is endemic in the industry. It's all about getting software out, new features, make those things happen. Did we build in security? Yeah, well, maybe not. Right? And then, okay, here's something that'll take care of that, and now it's the user's fault.
Hmm.
Right?
I don't think we're ever gonna see a silver bullet to any of these things, regardless of like, let's say we create a new authentication standard, or let's say we create just a new approach to authentication. There's always going to be attack vectors for anything that we create. Um, I think we can do better as an industry. Absolutely. I like some of the solutions that I've seen out there, but I think there's still more to be created, and that will help minimize these sort of successful attacks. Like if we reflect back on the thing that I shared earlier about EDR technologies reaching a certain peak of maturity and being able to protect those systems, do we have attackers that are still circumventing and focusing on circumventing those controls when they land on a system? Absolutely, they do. But they're shifting the way they attack now because they're able to enter an organization through an easier method, which is often a compromised identity or a set of credentials that they purchased on the dark net to enter that organization. Right? Attackers are always going to choose the path of least resistance, and so I feel like now we're seeing more of that shift to identity attacks because it's easier. So that pushes the industry to mature these solutions. So to answer your question, I think that we will see more and more security companies come out in the authentication space. I think we will see existing companies continue to innovate to try to reach a similar like level of maturity, so that attackers have to look elsewhere. But the big component here is, and we talked about this before the show started, but one of the big components here is the human element that's involved, right? So when you have the human element involved, it's not just a tech solution; it's a people and process component too. So we've got to adequately train people on these sort of methods. Like I'm really worried about, deep fake voice impersonation or video impersonation for
Hmm.
amplifying social engineering attacks. Like super worried about that because um, unless you start establishing like passphrases on conversations between people, you're soon not going to have like guarantees that you're talking to the person that you've intended to talk to. And that brings attestation to like a whole new forefront, new level.
And that also increases the complexity.
Yeah, it increases the complexity. Like
Try to
I use the
convince that of someone else, to explain that to your grandma, right?
right. It's not going to work. And sadly, lots of the elderly get scammed through these
Yes.
kind of voice calls. So definitely relevant.
I mean, we've been I'm on campus, have a student in panic because they got a screaming call from what they thought was a relative. It's a scam.
Yep.
That's getting to different levels of social engineering. And this is the big problem with identity, right? Is that identity is that point between the human and the machine. And whenever you connect the human, you've you've got a whole new area of vulnerability.
That's right. That's why like adequate training around these techniques and continued increasing awareness, whether it's students, whether it's older people, everybody in the organization is responsible to learn this and take this stuff to heart. I think that it's super imperative that we continue to update that training because it's not necessarily that the attack method is changing; it's just constantly evolving. So like there's some stats out there that say like voice phishing has a 3 times increase success rate. So imagine stacking that on top of all social engineering attacks are include voice phishing and include a deep fake voice on top of
Yeah.
that, right? So it definitely definitely scary. How do you train against that? Are you forcing people to, like I said, create passphrases to verify the recipient? It's going to bring about a lot of new challenges, I think.
And I love your whole concept with the hackers, right? You take a shovel of sand, throw it on top of a grate, and it's going to suck in somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's as easy as spending $10 to enter an organization these days because you've bought a series of credentials off of the dark net, and that's as little of a cost that I've seen. When I spend time looking through these sort of forums, you can buy your way in, and that's an easy way to get into to a company and then carry out the rest of your operation. So um, one of the things I learned at the last company that I worked at when I was at Lookout is, it was really focused on mobile security. And so that really opened my eyes to sort of these different fatigue attacks and the types of attacks that are relevant on mobile devices. And so, um, maybe this will replace our computers someday. There's those docks that are out there now for your phone that you can hook it up to an external monitor and everything, and they're getting quite powerful. But no device is immune to
Right.
attacks. So I'm looking at
Oh,
the bread comment
yeah,
right now.
Jesse. Jesse said, "Oh my god, the homemade bread was so good. It was so good." I like this comment. So, Tyler, you may not know this, but that's Will's boss. Will's boss
Nice.
says, "Anytime I have bad news to deliver, I'll just show up as Will."
Yeah.
You know what?
Yep,
There is
Samsung Dex.
something.
There we
Okay,
go.
I mean, we've gone down all of this is very risky. This is scary. Like, right? And I don't want to end it there. I have to
Yeah,
counterbalance it with a little thought bubble. Okay.
good.
So how many hours of me and Will are out on the internet? There's a bunch. There's a whole bunch. It's a lot. I think the other day I was looking at the YouTube and it said that we had over 140 videos or something. There's a lot.
Wow.
So and I always knew that whenever, AI started to come up and I was like, wow, look at what they're doing with AI now. Oh, look what they're doing with AI now. Oh no, what like somebody could pretty much fake to be me. And then I thought about it for a little while and I was like, Ericsson's getting real good at coding. if there perchance I in my life ends and my children are still ongoing and want to speak to me, right? That's my goal as a parent, by the way. It's just that when I die, they miss me. Like that's it. And they're not like, thank
Yeah.
goodness. Woo. Right. That's it. That's all I'm trying for here. I like to set my bar real low. That way I exceed expectations.
This reminds me of so many sci-fi movies where they've done just that, or like an episode of Black Mirror where you've taken the person's voice and all of their recorded time frame and
Right.
immortalized
And
them.
like be able to, I don't know, ask me questions and I would respond. The quote unquote I would respond. And the AI version of Rachel would respond in a way that they find comforting and meaningful. And I mean, is that what you do? Because think about it now. The way, so our social okay, hold on, processing, and then I'm gonna lay this thought out. Okay, so whenever we as a human species were like, hey, it's the internet, it's really fun, let's go claim our digital citizenship, basically is what happened, right? We get on every platform, you put your name on there, you claim your place, put your little flag in the proverbial sand right there. Yeah. And as you've had friends, as I'm sure that y'all have experienced too, pass away over the years after creating these digital citizenship, it's becoming a graveyard of data that is specific to a human being. And it's their best version of themselves, hopefully, if they understood that the internet lives forever, right?
And you wanted to end on a high note?
And that's but what if you could live on perpetually forever as a large language model that somebody could query? What?
There's probably a company for this
Like,
already.
what if?
So take the. I guess what you're saying out of inspiration to me is take the digital graveyard and turn it into a digital heaven of sorts, right?
Right.
Where you can, yeah. I mean, I like the idea. It makes me think of Her and all of those other movies that I love.
Yeah, I like those movies too, but like, I don't know. I'm not as worried about the risk of the social engineering attack because I guess what I'm saying is I think that And it was a hopeful message. Will, we're gonna live forever. Was the message. Uh, you missed it. Digitally, we're gonna live forever. The risk of somebody utilizing me in a malicious way, to me, it weighs less than my children being able to speak with me in 50 years. Is what I'm getting at.
I get what you're understanding.
Okay.
I get what
Did
you're
I
saying.
get there? Did I make it to the point? It took a long way around. But
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think at the end of the day, I think, I'll come back to something I said before we started the show, which is, people are the strongest link if they are given the tools and the training to sort of to get there. You constantly hear the opposite, and so my positive message to the end of the conversation is like, let's equip people correctly and let's make sure they have adequate training, because there's so many incidences that I've reviewed where like an employee like reported correctly into a Slack channel like, hey, this doesn't seem
right.
right. And like, we need more of people like that. We need more people that are just like, hey, this didn't, I messed up. Like one of the incidences that I reviewed at one point was an employee in a Slack channel basically indicated like, hey, I fell for this. I put my credentials in here. I messed up. But they did it. They like realized something was wrong like very quickly after they messed up, and they reported it. And then their accounts got disabled pretty much immediately after by the
Right.
information security team. But like, we need more people that like that. We need more organizations that encourage people to come forward when they
Right.
make mistakes and not have any form of retaliation. So that's my sort of message of
I
encouragement.
think
I
it's
like
great.
That's kind of making sure that you come up with a solution identity wise that is simple and direct enough that you can turn into a culture.
I love this. Poor Najo. She's like, I popped back in and we're talking about living forever as a large language model. What's happening? And then freaking Rob. He's like, don't worry, we already signed you up. Sorry. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you go that route. My head just goes into Ray Bradbury's The House, right?
Sorry.
Anyhow.
So there are apparently I just googled this at the end of the
Oh, good.
conversation here. Apparently there are companies out there focusing on digital immortality through taking in and digesting all of the recordings and everything. So
I mean, I'm
already
not
exists.
trying to I'm not trying to make it bigger than what it is. So like, don't misunderstand me. I'm not like, let's live forever, you guys. No, that's not how that's going to work. Like, I'm not that kind of a person. No, what I'm saying is, like now I turn to my kids and I'm like my daughter, Mary Ellen, she's named for her grandmother, or her great grandmother, my grandmother, who was a very important woman in my life. And man, I sure wish I had recorded her telling stories. She was born in 1906, 1907, sorry, 1907. And she had stories about being a little girl watching soldiers get on trains to be shipped off for World War One. Like, do you know how much I would love to have all of that and then be able to, like, instead of saying, okay, Google, be like, okay, grandma, right? Tell me the story about blah, 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 blah. And then that would be cool.
We're definitely living in an era where it's
Right?
possible now
Before my
for
brain
that.
was
Yeah,
going.
and then like your kids can choose then if the way I feel about it is like your kids can choose then if they want that or
Right.
not. Like if that brings them more happiness than sadness, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
Or just, I mean, my grandmother passed away when I was a teenager. Like, it's been some time, but I would love to be able to share that with generations that never intersected. Like, they never, right? Like, that would be amazing. That's a hopeful thing, but we got to do it securely, guys, because
you just made me think of the thing that happened in I don't know why, but I'm gonna say this
oh
anyways.
no.
You just made me think of thing in the UK where they're using the digital grandma to like reverse scam people, like scam the scammers, like waste their time. And there's all of that data around like how many hours of time wasted to scammers. That's the way I'll end this talk. I just
That
thought
should
of
be our
that.
vigilante message or vigilante activity for the summer, by the way, guys. We should all band together, of course, tell no one, and come up with different fun ways to just waste hacker time. I love it.
I gotta find the yeah. If you look it up, Digital Granny turns tables on phone
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
scammers.
gosh.
I would encourage everyone to watch that video if you
Yeah,
haven't seen
that
it. It's
guy's
very
great.
funny.
He has so many YouTube videos of scammers just screaming into the phone. And it's like, yes.
All right, so look, guys, we're at time. Look, before we jumped on this call, Tyler's like, what are we gonna talk about? I'm like, you have no idea. It'll go by so fast, man. It goes. It
It always
always does.
does. It feels like 20 minutes, even though
Right.
it's been an
It's
hour.
been a whole hour. We did so great. Look at that. And thank you guys to our audience for always coming and joining us. Thank you, Tyler, for being our guest today. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having
Thank you
me.
to Will and Will's boss for letting us steal him away for his
Yeah,
volunteer time.
dude, this was awesome, and I loved your insight. And hopefully, for students or whomever is interested, taking a different view into identity. This is a really cool little jaunt. Thank you.
I like it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It was great being here, and I would encourage anyone that's joined, whether you're a student or somebody working at a company, like reach out to me. And like, if you have questions, I'm super approachable. Like, if you just reach out and say, like, what do you think about this, or how do you think I should solve this? Just yeah, it looks like you got a QR code for me, which is cool. So feel free to reach out, connect with me, give me your thoughts. I'm not right about everything either, so like I'm very open to other points of
We
view.
love it. We love
Please.
it. Okay, so go to
Thank you.
connect with Tyler through that's his LinkedIn, by the way. That's where this is going to take you is your LinkedIn. And don't
Thank you.
forget to come see us at B-Sides. So we're going to be streaming the Coffee Table Talk Live event live from B-Sides. And you can go check that out on the events section of the Secure Nation LinkedIn profile page, or on YouTube, right at the Human API. That it'll be available there too. I think my mom's the only one that cares about the Facebook. But anyway, the tickets are only $45. They're $25 for students to attend the entirety of the B-Sides conference. You go to that QR code and it leads you to their website. And if you have questions, I'm here, happy to answer questions. Najo's in the chat somewhere, also happy to answer any questions that you might have. But it's going to be a great time. It's been a fantastic conference over the last couple of years that I've really enjoyed. So we're looking forward to doing that event on Tuesday. You guys have a great weekend. Thank you so much. This is the part where we